state that Joe Biden won by 10 points. Meanwhile,
Hmm.
like something like Wisconsin is also a tie. It's like, wait, what? And you look at some of these tied Virginia polls, and they'll have like Trump winning like a quarter of the black vote. It's like that's not going to happen. That's even yeah,
Sorry for laughing. Yeah, I
no,
know.
but that's what we're dealing with. We're in
Hmm.
such a weird position here. It's kind of one of my kind of go-to examples is Governor Brian Kemp in Georgia, who
Yeah,
he's very popular for a Republican in Georgia. He won by like 8 points in 2022. If you look at exit polls, Kemp only got like 9% of the black vote. So
hmm.
some of these polls with Trump at 20% plus of the black vote, even the Hispanic vote to some extent, I can see that. I can see Biden not doing as well as Obama with Hispanics, okay, but he's not going to outright lose them or only win them by single digits. So it's just weird. And, I kind of think, too, that, back when Trump first ran, uh,
2016. Yeah.
yeah, so, it was kind of a surprise that he won. And, like a lot of people were kind of attributing that to, there's this kind of quiet Trump vote that his support, like it was kind of not socially acceptable in some circles to be for Trump, so people didn't want to
Yeah.
tell pollsters that they were for Trump. I think this time it might be the opposite, if anything else, because because the Trump voters are so enthusiastic to talk
Yeah.
to pollsters
Mhm.
that things may be underestimating Biden. I tell you, us forecasters, we're kind of not burnt, but we had a year 2020 where the Republicans did better than most people expected, right? Because
Yeah.
Donald Trump only lost by 4 points, not 10 points that most polls had him losing by. The national popular vote, the Democrats only barely took the Senate in 2020. Had it not been
Yep.
for those Georgia runoffs,
Yes, that's
it,
true. Mhm.
the Senate leader would be Mitch McConnell. Yeah, and most most forecasters had the Democrats gaining like 10, 12 seats in the House. That's what they lost instead. So, kind of my joke on that year was, we had the Democrats picking up 10 seats in the House that year. And like I would tell people, well, we were wrong, but we were less wrong than the other forecasters, if you look at it.
Less wrong. Yeah.
Yeah, and then you move to 2022, where it was a year where the Democrats were the ones who did better than most people
Yeah.
thought. It was God, I run, basically my political. I'm a blue dog Democrat, so I'm kind of a Democrat, but I'm more moderate.
Okay. Yeah.
I just remember Obama's midterms were slaughter. They were
Yeah.
rough.
Yeah.
And Biden, he gained the Senate seat. He only
Yep.
barely lost the House. The Democrats picked up governorships. We
Yeah.
were,
That's true. Mhm.
kind of again, we had a bad House forecast that year because we had the Republicans gaining like 25 seats. They only gained like 9. Uh, so
Wait, about I just want to interject about the governor races. I got the numbers right, but I got the states wrong. I only got it right the numbers because Massachusetts is gonna flip and
yeah,
Maryland is gonna flip. Obviously, the
yeah.
only states I got wrong was Nevada and Arizona. I thought they're gonna stay the same, just like in the
Yeah.
Senate level. It
Uh-huh.
turns out I was wrong.
Yeah. Let's try to. I wanna ask on Nevada first because the race there was very very tight, and we thought that Sisolak would retain hold. And where did he underperform? If you were focusing, if
So if I
you
recall,
studied that.
it's the one note I will say on that. If y'all are into podcasts, my favorite podcast is called the Pro Politics Podcast. The host of it is a Democratic pollster named Zach
Oh
McCreary.
yeah.
Yeah,
He's
yeah.
he's a Democrat, but he has people of all stripes on. Some of his Republican guests I learn a lot from. But anyway, Steve Cieslak was one of his clients,
Mm,
and it was it was weird because it was such a good year for incumbents that year that no
mm,
uh, every governor who was an incumbent was renominated. Only that one lost, Cselak, and they just chalked it up to, they got the best possible Republican against them, and Joe Lombardo. If you look at a lot of races across the country, the Republicans nominated shit candidates, right? That wasn't the case in that race. They had a good candidate. Lost, Nevada, specifically the Las Vegas area,
hmm.
that was an area that was hit hard by the COVID lockdowns, right? Because
Yes,
it
yeah.
was very dependent on tourism. You can't
Mm-hmm.
really do that in the pandemic, so maybe they
Mm,
took out their anger on the Democratic governor. Um, and it's funny that basically Sisolak, if I recall, uh, one of the kind of things that's changed about Nevada in the 15, 16 years since I've been watching and following politics is
mm.
there like used to be a saying that if you were a Democrat, you needed to win Clark County by at least 10 points to,
Okay.
win statewide. One perfect example of that is if you look at the Senate race in 2012. That was when Congresswoman Shelley Berkeley was challenging Dean Heller,
Yeah,
who
yeah, yeah. The
Republican.
Republican, yeah,
She only
senator.
won
Yeah.
Clark County by like 9 points. So had she done a bit better there, she would have won. But it's weird that that's really not the rule anymore because even Cortez Masto in 2022,
Yeah,
she
yeah,
only won it by 7 or 8. And
yeah.
part of that is because the Reno area is trending more Democratic. That historically used to be a little more Republican. So it's
Mm-hmm.
kind of balancing that out. So Sisolak, I think he kind of ironically, he improved in a lot of the rural areas, but compared to
Mm.
2018, he, like instead of winning Clark County by like 13 points, he only won it by 6,
Oh,
and
that's a
that's
low.
broken.
That there's
Uh,
a shift. Yeah.
yeah, and I think why I say like Lombardo was like the best Republican because before he was governor, he used to be sheriff of Clark County. So that
Oh, that
that's
explains that.
basically
Mm-hmm.
3/4 of the state's population right there. They all knew who he was.
Mm. Okay, let's move to another Western state that is going to be one of the deciders of this election, this year's election,
Arizona.
Arizona. So,
Yeah, yeah.
like what EJ said, his prediction was, um, who is that girl?
Lake,
The announcer,
Lake,
Miss Lake. Carrie Lake is
yeah.
going
Yeah.
to retain Arizona, or she's going to retain Republican hold there. But Hobbs won that. I mean, it's the other way around. How is that? Is it a continual assessment that Arizona is shifting more blue than
I,
Nevada?
I would say so. Yeah, it's I kind of remember like the first national campaign I followed was '08 with Obama, and Obama got 45% of the vote there without really even trying because
Oh
that was
wow,
McCain's home state. They wanted to give
yeah.
it, they didn't really target it. And I remember Arizona having this image of a very Republican state, and that really started to change in the Trump era. In
Mm,
fact,
Yeah.
what really caught my attention in 2016 was uh, I was even though I'm from New Orleans originally, Louisiana, I was raised in North Carolina, and North Carolina has been a state where like Obama carried it, but ever
Yeah,
since then, the Democrats always fall a
yeah,
little
yeah, yeah.
short. What really caught my attention in 2016 was Arizona, which was a traditionally red Republican state, was
That's true.
closer than North Carolina.
Mm,
Um,
Yeah.
and in 2020, I think that basically in a state like Arizona, you have a lot of Republicans or kind of softer Republicans who would have
mm,
liked John McCain. They don't
mm.
like a more Trumpy type of Republican Party, so I
Okay.
think that's helped.
Mm.
It's funny that in 2020, if you look at the precinct level returns, um, as you guys probably know,
Yeah,
Joe Biden did not really do that hot with the Hispanic vote. Compared to
yeah,
Hillary Clinton, they
Yeah.
kind of
yeah,
moved to the Republicans. But that was the case in Florida, Texas. So
Yeah.
even some states like Massachusetts, which only have these kind of small pockets of Hispanics here and there, they all shifted to Trump. But in Arizona, that wasn't the case as much. My
mm. That's
con
interesting.
kind of my theory there is in 2010, they had this kind of Tea Party conservative Republican governor named Jan Brewer. And she passed this law where basically if you looked Hispanic, the police could stop you and ask you if you had immigration papers on you.
Oh wow.
And that, for a lot of the Hispanic vote,
Stop
probably
and
created
frisk.
this association with the Republican Party that, okay, these guys aren't for us. So basically,
Mm,
point being, in Arizona, Biden did not drop off very much with the Hispanic vote, and I think that helped him. Also in Arizona, as you guys may know, there's a large Native American population.
yeah, yeah.
Specifically kind of in the northern part of the state.
Mm,
One of my most popular tweets is after the election, I was doing some precinct level analysis. And if you look at kind of the northern part of the state where there's the Hopi tribe, there's the Navajo tribe,
yeah,
compared to Hillary Clinton, Biden gained like 9,000 votes onto his margin just within these tribes.
mm,
Like guess what? He carried the state of Arizona by only 10,000 votes. So that
mm,
right there was most of his margin.
yeah.
So I think outreach to Native Americans also. But yeah. No. Long story short, I think Arizona is probably shifted more towards Democrats. We'll have to see. It was. I don't know how much y'all have been following the local stuff there, but they had this. They have this abortion referendum there this year, which is kind of funny. I'll tell y'all. It's one of the asides. Is before I was involved at the UVA Center for Politics, where I basically have to be nonpartisan. I was active with Democrats for Life of America, which is basically that's the biggest group of pro-life Democrats. And
Mm,
like I'm a Democrat, but I'm also Catholic as well. My first date with my girlfriend, we ended up meeting each other at church and going to mass, right? So
oh yeah,
that
yeah,
should tell you something right there.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Uh, it's been funny to me that the Democrats have been doing so well because of the one issue, I don't agree with them on, but it's I really don't like the Republicans, but yeah, it is. I think Arizona is going to be more of a swing state. It was funny that kind of what especially on Twitter, there's a lot of discourse kind of reacting to whatever the last election was. Like I think after 2020, like you had a lot of people saying like Georgia, for instance, Georgia could probably be trending Democratic quickly like Virginia did, but Arizona could maybe be always kind of a 50-50 state over the next
Yeah,
few cycles, which I think that might be right.
yeah. I mean, just to add note into that, Miles. I mean, the last Democrat to carry Arizona was Bill Clinton, and Bill Clinton had help from. Well, we can argue about this. That Ross Perot ran in that election, and he
Hmm.
kind of sieved a lot of votes from both Dole and Clinton. That's why Clinton ended up winning Arizona, and then after that, of course, um, Arizona was showing its Republican identity in 4 years' time. So,
Yeah, and just to give you a sense too, is like I believe when Clinton carried it in '96, he did not carry Maricopa County.
yeah.
I'll tell you one kind of story on that. Like my favorite books, and I could one second, guys. I'm going to step aside quickly. Uh,
Yeah, take
my
your time, sir. No problem.
Yeah,
my
I
favorite books, and I'll send you a link because most of them are online for free if you would like. But
mm.
my favorite books are called The Almanac of American Politics.
Oh wow.
These have been going on, so it's basically a book. It tells you basically, it goes through every state. It tells you like about the like members of Congress. It tells you
Hmm.
about their dead districts as well.
Hmm.
They've been going on since the 70s. So this is from 1996.
Oh
Um,
okay.
Oh,
and I remember like they'll talk about kind of the presidential elections as well. And um, one of the kind of quirks on Arizona, or like what they attributed Clinton's win in Arizona to,
Hmm.
is so right north of Arizona is Utah, and
Hmm.
which Utah is me. I had to go out there for a speaking conference earlier this year. I took my girlfriend with me. That is, Utah is a beautiful state. If you're ever in
Yeah,
America,
it is.
I very much recommend going to
Yeah,
Utah. But like anyway,
the
uh,
skiing. It's there's a lot of skiing sites in Utah.
skiing, skiing, hiking, national monuments. But like
Yeah.
anyway, in
Mormon
19
state.
No. Well, well,
that's
that's the
No,
stereotype, but yeah.
well, basically
no,
Nevada as
I'm
well.
just
It still applies. But
Yeah,
anyway,
yeah, both of them.
back in 1996, Bill Clinton. Uh, so there's this monument called the Grand Staircase Escalante Monument, kind of right by Utah, but also kind of close to Arizona as well. What the almanac attributes Clinton's win there to is he designated this area as national monument. So basically,
Oh.
no development. And apparently in Arizona they're very environmental friendly, and they kind of liked that.
Hmm.
The kind of what was kind of funny is in Utah they did not like it as much because you're basically going into their land saying, okay, this land you can't do anything with it. This is monument. There was a Democratic congressman named Bill Orden who
Hmm.
he was a Democrat, but he held this. He had held this very Republican seat in the early '90s. If you've ever heard of Provo, Utah, it's like
Yeah, yeah.
one of the most heavily conservative Mormon towns in America. He was their member of Congress. In 1996, Bill Orden finally lost because of that issue. They think that's the issue that kind of tanked him because he lost by a few points. So it's funny, by kind of declaring this national monument, it may have helped Bill Clinton carry Arizona, but it cost a Democrat their re-election as well. So it's funny,
Oh,
kind of those trade-offs that people make.
yeah. Well, we just had to bring it up there because Arizona's been red since for a long time, right? Right.
Oh,
It wasn't
oh
even contested, unlike Florida, which is completely contested, and now it's the one that's moving to the right, and
yeah,
because
Florida.
of because of Trump's good volumes of Hispanic gains there.
I'll
But
tell you a
anyway,
story too. Is we were planning. My girlfriend and I were planning where we're gonna go travel later that summer, and she was talking about going down to Florida with one of her friends, and I told her, I'm like, no, I'm not going to that state. I do not like. You can pick any other state, I'll go, but not Florida.
I not until Governor the fascist is not governor anymore.
Yeah, I mean, even then, I mean, it is. Yeah, I mean, Florida is well, like I'll tell you, something that we're kind of we're one second, guys. Uh, yeah, so I have this. So back in 2020, in our election prediction, we put out we got 49 out of 50 states right.
oh,
Uh,
okay.
and we were the only forecaster who
Oh wait, I did not see that. Can I take a look at
Yeah.
again?
Oh, wow. So it's actually very, very accurate. So you got
Yeah,
it all
so
correct,
one thing that we're
except
very
you
proud of on this is we were the only American forecaster who had Georgia going Democratic for Biden, but like Florida still being for
I
Trump.
think Dave Wasserman. Wait, Henry Olsen. I think also got that right.
Oh, did he? Okay. Well, it's actually actually I'm going on Henry Olsen's podcast in a few weeks to talk about our primaries in Virginia. Yeah, I've known him for a while, but like we were the only there's us, there's Cook Political,
yeah, yeah.
there's Inside. We were the only one of those forecasters who called it right. Um, but and basically why is we saw like if you look basically '08 going to 2018, almost every election cycle, regardless of whatever the national environment was, a lot of those counties around Atlanta would move Democratic every year. That they get more Democratic every year. So I'm like, okay, well, we think this is a year that they finally probably push the Democrats over the top in Georgia, which they did.
Hmm.
But in Florida, we would watch as, every year the Democrats would blow these winnable races. And, our thinking in 2020 was, we just don't trust Florida. So, Biden can be up 5-6 points there. We're still not, we're calling it for the Republican. And, I think that really is to us, that's one of our advantages compared to say 538, which is something they're more of a polls based forecaster, right?
Yeah,
So
yeah.
Yeah,
we
they
can
don't.
I like to think basically as long as we provide a good reason, we can basically polls are something we consider in our forecast, but they're not everything. So we can sometimes disregard polls. So that's why we were able to make that call, and we ended up being right. Sometimes that works out well for us, sometimes it doesn't. But yeah, I'm kind of proud of that, and yeah, it's just gone. I kind of think that just to give y'all some context here for like America is yeah, I don't know. Florida for what kept Florida competitive for a while is you had a lot of older voters from
Oh,
places
yeah.
like New York moving there to
Yes.
retire.
Yeah,
Uh,
the
you know,
Jewish population. Yeah, they
right,
did do that.
and you also have a lot of Midwesterners from places like Wisconsin and Ohio who moved down there as well. Those are more conservative. Well, if you look at population trends, I'm really not sure how many more of those New York retirees there are left because the boomers are you're already hitting retirement age. And I really wonder if Florida is, if I'm a retiree who has a more liberal worldview, and
Mm-hmm.
Florida, has such the conservative reputation that it has.
Mm-hmm.
I might look to retiring somewhere else. So I think people are seeing that and it's basically seeing where it is. And so basically, point being, I can. No, I think Florida going forward is going to still be a pretty Republican leaning state. We'll see, but
Mm-hmm.
that's just my guess.
Yeah. Okay. Speaking of Florida, let's go to the Senate race there. Um, does uh, the Democratic candidate or the leading Democratic candidate has a shot in taking over the Senate seat of Rick Scott?
I think we rate that as likely Republican. I think Debbie McCaster Powell, she's a good candidate.
Mm,
But and as y'all guys probably know, Rick Scott has always had these close races. This could probably be the first time where he wins by a comfortable margin.
mm,
Something. One of the good followers on Twitter who I've known him for years now is Matt Isbell. His handle is at mapping FL. One of the things he talks about, he's based in Florida, and just that the down, it's a very expensive state is another thing
mm-hmm.
that I think kind of hurts the Democrats there. That's probably something that's pushed Rick Scott over the edge in some of his races where he's personally wealthy. He can
Mm-hmm.
afford to run ads in some of these very pricey markets in Florida.
Mm-hmm.
If I'm the Democrats and I'm kind of deciding whether to, spend money defending my incumbents, which I have a lot of them up in the Senate this year, or try to chase Florida, what am I going to do? Right. So I think defending your incumbents takes priority. So, um, I can see maybe Rick Scott doing a little worse than Donald Trump there, but I don't think it's going to be, decisive.
Okay. Now let's talk about. Well, there's a lot of Senate races that are worth talking about, but let's start first with the competitive ones. So, how about in Ohio? So, Sherrod Brown is to, you know, uh, run again this year, and we all know how Ohio, like Florida, has shifted way to the right, and this was one of the successful defenses of Donald Trump last election. And do you think that Sherrod Brown might lose some momentum nowadays compared to his win in 2018? Because 2018 was more, favoring the Democrats.
Yeah.
Do you think Sherrod Brown would have a more difficult time this cycle?
I would think so. I'll tell you a quick story as well. As I was talking to a group of local Democrats here about a month ago, and I was one of their like speakers. They wanted me to talk to them about the election, but one of the other speakers was Senator Tim Kaine, and
Yeah,
who
Virginia.
I like him. He's one of my favorite.
Oh,
He's one of those who I'm always excited to go out for. I'm always excited to go vote for. But anyway, I was talking to him some and just how he sees the Senate races, and he's like, "Well, yeah, me and he's like, well, me and Sherrod Brown sometimes we compare notes about how our states have moved in the opposite directions because I kind of remember in 2012, if you look at the presidential race, like Virginia and Ohio were two of the most competitive states, and
yeah,
they've
yeah.
gone the opposite. But point being, I think Brown's in trouble. He's
Oh
not.
no.
Oh shit.
No, I say he's in trouble is, I'm not right. I'm not going to write him off. We have that race as a toss up,
Yep.
but I think what hurts him is kind of what I'm just talking about. Ohio isn't going to be a state that it's moved off. If you look at if you look at the presidential picture, it's really moved off the table in terms of states that are really up for kind of grabs. Back in 2012, he had the Obama machine really working out turnout in Ohio. He had the kind of anti-Trump wave in 2018 helping him. This might be a more neutral year. Something he does emphasize is he got the opponent he wants. That could be working in his favor. But something else that I think could be interesting is in 2020, as you guys might know, there was a lot of alignment between how a state voted for a president and how it voted for the down ballot offices like Senate, right? And
Yes.
one of my interesting observations from then is, if you look at Doug Jones, who lost in
Yeah.
Alabama,
Yeah.
Unfortunate.
Alabama is a state that's very inelastic, right?
Yes, that's true.
Basically, the African American voters vote 90% Democrat there. The white voters vote 90% Republican. Maybe for Doug Jones, they only voted 85% Republican instead of 90. But point being, even in a state as inelastic as Alabama, Doug Jones ran 5 points better than Joe Biden. He lost by 20 instead of 25. So, I kind of think, okay, well, that to me, maybe if Biden can kind of keep his loss in Ohio within single digits, Brown can overperform that.
Yeah.
So we'll see. It's a state we have. It's a state we have as a toss up. If I had to pick today, I would give Moreno a slight edge, but not very much. I'd say he wins by 1 or 2.
Yeah. Can you explain, Miles, how come Ohio in the short span of time became very red? Like in 2020, I was surprised that Biden was actually losing the same levels like Hillary did in 2016. Yeah. So was it because of the working class in Ohio really shifting to the right?
Yes, that's a big part of it. Is actually, I did a series of articles these past few months where I was looking at some of the congressional district level changes between like 2008 and 2020. Basically, Ohio's 6th congressional district, which y'all probably know, is basically Youngstown plus a lot of the Appalachian parts of the state. That district voted for Obama by like 7 points in 2008, and it still stuck with him in 2012. Flash forward to 2020, it votes for Trump by like 30 points. So there's just a lot of, there's just a very big working class rural type of contingent in Ohio. And areas that used to be more democratic, like Youngstown, have a big manufacturing type base.
Yeah. That used to be Tim Ryan's district, right?
Yes, right. And you have a lot of voters there who like what Trump talks about in terms of like trade, and it's like, I don't know if you saw, but there was probably within the past few weeks, Biden put like a new put on a new tariff on imports from
China.
From China. That was probably meant to help Brown in Ohio, because he can say, "Oh, this is what Democrats are doing now," because they're very protectionist. And one of my kind of pet theories as well, which basically actually I'll show y'all another book really quick. 1 second, guys. Let me find it quick. I just got a new bookshelf, so like I don't know where all my stuff is. Give me like 1 second. Here we go. So there's a book which I would recommend if you're interested in Ohio. called The Bellwether. It's from my associate Kyle Kondik at the Crystal Ball. He's from there
Oh yeah.
originally. He's
Oh,
it's funny because we both work at the University of Virginia, but like Virginia isn't really our favorite state. Like he's all about Ohio. I can tell you everything about Louisiana, but anyway, we could still do our job. But anyway, one one of the things he talks about here is like Ohio is the state that picks historically Ohio is the state that picks the president, and with a few
Yeah.
exceptions over the years. And he was lucky that he got this book out before the 2016 election, because since then it's gone way to the right. And like he jokes that when like he put this out, it was like a current events contemporary book. Now it's a history book because it's not the state is just a Republican state now. And
mm-hmm.
one of the things, not Ohio specifically, but something I think about is Democrats can do well in states where you have just one metro area that dominates everything. Think about Georgia, think about Illinois, even like a state like Minnesota, where you
Mm-hmm.
have the kind of twin cities, and
Yeah, yeah.
they don't do as well as in states where everything's more spread out, like North Carolina, for
Yes, that's
example.
true.
You have Charlotte, you have Raleigh, you have Greensboro. It's a lot of
Winston
areas,
Salem. Yeah.
right? It's a lot of areas you need to organize individually, and each of those cities has their own very Republican suburbs and kind of exurbs as well.
Mm-hmm.
One of the things Kyle talks about in this book, which I think helps the Republicans, same thing in Ohio, right? You have Cleveland, you have Cincinnati, and
Columbus.
Columbus.
Yeah. So,
None of those cities can really dominate statewide politics. So, every metro area has its big Republican outer suburbs. You have a lot of rural areas. So, I think that's part of it. So, not to say that Brown is going to lose, but you know, it's it's going to be a tough race, even with the candidate that he got.
mhm. Yeah. Okay. Just to, because I also fascinate into Ohio's sudden shift rightwards because in '08 I was already politically aware of Ohio's status being the swing state. I mean, it was the one of the deciding states for Bush in '04. I mean,
Right.
that wasn't too long ago. That was 20 years ago. I mean,
Yeah.
that is not really that far away from modern era. So 2008 it swung back to Obama, and he kept it under his wins in 2012 against Romney. And after the Trump win in 2016, I was one of those. I was quite optimistic that Ohio would be closer, if not going to swing back to the Democrats because of its bellwether identity. But it did went the same level, if not more, in 2020. So I needed to validate from you why that suddenly happened, right? Because there are certain states that shifted very, very slowly to the
Yeah.
right. And one of the best examples of that is West Virginia, because West Virginia used to be very, very Democratic. I mean, it voted for the caucus, it went for Clinton, and it was very, very close with Gore and Bush in 2000. So it suddenly shifted after that, right? So it was a slow process.
Mhm.
And, I'm just not used to states just suddenly moving to the needle that much. Like, I mean,
Uh,
even Georgia took many seasons to shift. Like from 2000 to 2012, it was not even part of the conversation where Democrats can compete their presidential level, and then 2016 happened, and then 20 the 2018 governor's race that was very close between Abrams and Kemp. I mean,
No, no, no. Yung in West Virginia, it was a Senate race. Then in 2020, it was the governor's
no.
race. Just to
Yeah. I was talking about Georgia as well. I mean, West Virginia.
yeah.
The I was comparing the patterns of shift. Like
Yeah.
in West Virginia, it took them many cycles to go red, and
Well,
in
West Virginia.
Ohio's.
Well,
Hmm,
in fairness, West Virginia. This was a little before I paid attention to politics. What
hmm,
But it was a bit of a surprise in 2000 when it actually went red. But
hmm.
I do agree with you that even it stayed about where it was for a long time, and then it just since 2012 really has been really kind of moving in that direction. But even in 2012, I remember it reelected most of its low. It had a very Democratic legislature that
Yeah.
really didn't start to change until recently. So yeah.
So yeah, I mean, I was just uh, the shift in Ohio is more faster than in West Virginia. But anyway, um, we just had wanted to put it in there because suddenly it's now very safe for Donald Trump, and I hope you agree with me on that because I think it's not going to go for Biden this time around.
No,
But
I'd be surprised if it does.
mm,
Another state that's going really slow is Texas. I
oh
remember.
yeah, we were just about to ask you that, but anyway,
Okay,
Texas is there's also a lot of Filipinos there. I mean,
okay,
my grandfather's um, nephew actually lives there in Dallas,
uh-huh,
and he votes Democratic. And even though Dallas is an urban city, right? It's an urban area. Texas is pretty rural, and it's very big, and I think that helps. In my opinion, it helps Republicans so much.
yeah,
Anyway, what is the case with Texas? I mean, is this trend moving to the left? On the other hand, like in Texas, um, consistent, or is it just because there's just some anti Trump movement there that
yeah. I
helps
think Trump.
Democrats?
Yeah, I'd say broadly, and not just Texas, but a lot of these shifts we talk about with the working class, or with college educated voters, for instance. You have a lot of those in the suburbs, Texas.
Yeah.
These kind of trends were happening before Trump, but he really sped stuff up.
Mhm.
So I think it could be maybe one of my hot takes this election, or maybe if you're online it might not be so hot, but I could see like Biden doing better in Texas than he does in Florida.
Mhm.
It's just a more suburban type of a state. If you look at people who are moving there, it's less, it's more friendly to the Democrats, but there's a lot of rural Texas as well, right? Basically the kind of eastern part of the state is very deep south, like Louisiana.
Mhm.
Um, you know, Plus you have the like Hispanic vote that's not, that very much shifted to Trump in 2020. Biden still won it, but it's still a block that is moving the wrong way for Democrats. But kind of one of my jokes on Texas is, it's not there yet, but it has 40 electoral votes. When it is a really true swing 50-50 state, it's going to be a pain in the ass for us forecasters, because there are probably going to be some election forecasts where, okay, well, if you miss Texas, you miss the whole, winner of the electoral college, right? Uh, so I would say Texas, you, you have, there are definitely some good things for Democrats there. You do probably have some younger voters moving there who are like priced out of states like California. So that's one thing. You know, lots of the suburbs are still pretty Republican. Like if you look at a place like right north of Houston, there's Montgomery County, which is
Hmm.
the only county in the whole country that gave Trump like a raw vote margin of over 100,000 votes both times. So
Oh wow.
you could also say that maybe in a place like that, it's like if you look at the percentage, it's like 80%, 70% Trump. Maybe Democrats have more room to improve there. That's one
Hmm.
thing I
What
could say.
about in RGV in the Rio Grande Valley?
Yeah, so that's moving more Republican, but I think it gets. There's this guy on Twitter called Alex Diaz who he's based in Las Vegas, but his whole thing is a Hispanic vote. That's his kind of specialty, and he's like he made an analogy the other day that the RGV is kind of like a bag of chips. You open it and there's less in it than you think. So basically, what he was saying is compare it probably gets more attention than it should get, for instance. And I think the RGV, like you could argue that over the long term, the Hispanic vote's trending Republican slowly, but the Hispanic vote's probably going more Republican there because a so one of the bigger kind of industries there is oil. So you have a
Hmm.
lot of oil
Yep.
drilling there. That's something that probably plays to the Republicans because the Democrats are kind of increasingly getting more environmental.
That
Uh,
is true.
Border security as well. That's something that kind of cuts to the Republicans well. So point being, the RGV may be going Republican, faster than most of the other Hispanic
Oh,
areas are. One thing that's kind of interesting as well is actually if you read through these almanacs over the years,
Hmm.
one thing they kind of say is this kind of applies more to the Asian vote, but you could say the Hispanic vote to some extent as well, is they tend to be pro incumbent. Uh,
Oh, okay.
because I think part of that is, if you're newer to a country, you want to show your patriotism, you're going to support whoever's in charge. So I kind of wonder if that was helping Trump in 2020. That could be helping Biden this time. We'll see. Uh, but and we talk about really, y'all have probably seen this that in America we have one of the big divides is urban versus rural, right?
yes.
If you look at white voters, for instance, white voters who have a college degree are more likely to vote Democrat, whereas rural whites are very Republican. So it would
Yes.
kind of make sense that okay, well, maybe that might over time that might not be just a white vote thing. Maybe that's going to eventually apply to Hispanics as well, right? So the Rio Grande Valley, has a very rural character. So maybe over the long term, the Democrats, basically hold their own with Hispanics in urban Texas, but they keep losing. Um, they kind of lose voters in the RGV. So we'll see.
Okay. So so in a way, Texas is still going to be red, right? I mean, in your forecast so far,
Yeah.
it's Ruby red, Republican. Okay.
We have in our presidential and Senate forecast, we have it as likely Republican. So not the safe Republican, but
Oh,
yeah,
oh,
basically long term. I
Lean
think
R.
what's that? Likely are. Oh,
I
for
like
yeah,
R.
yeah, no, long term. I do think Texas is probably going to be a purple state a few cycles down the road, just not this year.
oh, yeah. We can agree to that. How about Allred? How is he doing in your poll so far? he's the likeliest to become the nominee.
Oh well, he
No,
is.
Uh,
he's
Yeah.
already the nominee.
oh, he
Yeah.
is. Sorry for that.
He.
So
Yeah. I mean, he had a pretty big primary win. You can see through some of his social media posts, at least, like Ted Cruz is kind of trying to steer more towards the middle after being very conservative for most of his career. I think most polls have Cruz up single digits. So, I really think that really in 2018,
mm,
when O'Rourke only lost by 2.5, 3 points, that was considered a really good showing. So,
yeah.
maybe all red can get a margin like that, but
Hmm.
it's I kind of doubt that he'll actually, you know,
Same, yeah. I
I
doubt
could
the
Yeah.
say
same.
that, kind of like Rick Scott, I could see Cruz being one of those Senate incumbents who's going to run behind Trump.
Mm, I agree.
Really, huh?
He is going to.
That
He has defended a lot of Trump's actions over the past few years. So why not? If it's working for him, though. I mean, that's just a political thing for me. But yeah. So so if Allred isn't going to go like O'Rourke numbers, um, what do you think is his best bet to win? If in case this becomes very dead heat, like in 2018.
Yeah, I mean, he's going to need to, it's a state that the Biden campaign is going to want to invest in, which I'm not sure I'm not sure how committed it is to Texas. I remember Biden back in 2020, during the very end of the campaign,
Mm,
Biden's basically last major campaign event is he did this kind of tour through the Rust Belt, states like Pennsylvania,
yeah,
Michigan, etc.
yeah.
There was a lot of pressure on Biden to go campaign in Texas instead of the kind of Rust Belt, which is kind of the traditional swing region. And
Hmm.
I think Biden was right
Yeah,
to kind of focus on the Rust Belt
yeah.
because even if he went to Texas, he may have lost it, but not maybe he loses it by 2 or 3 instead of 5 or 6, like he lost it by. So there may be a sense among Democrats, kind of same thing with Florida, that they kind of want to defend what they have, right?
Oh, yeah. Mm,
So that probably hurts him. I would say if Cruz has any other kind of gaffes or if he says something outlandish, that may hurt him.
mm,
It's I think it might help that all right at least is a minority.
mm,
So could he, he's not Hispanic, but um, even since the Obama era, the Democrats these years have not been doing as good as Obama with the black vote. Okay, well they have a candidate who's black, so maybe that uh, if Allred can do better with Biden with minorities, that may be something that could kind of help him. Um, but we'll see. I kind of think that the kind of the Beto O'Rourke won or lost by 2.5, 3 points. That to me on a good night for Allred, that would be a good night. So that I consider kind of his ceiling.
okay. All right. Well, let's get to the West
I
Belt
w-
because
Oh,
oh,
guys,
I
just on a housekeeping note, is like I see we're at 53 minutes. Could uh, could we call it a day when we get to an hour mark, and then if y'all want me back on, I'm happy to come back on.
oh yeah, yeah, sure,
Okay.
sure, why
oh, yeah,
not?
sure, sure, sure.
Yeah.
We can.
EJ has some questions though. Yeah.
So about in the Wisconsin first, like I in this year's prediction, I put Wisconsin to tilt R if I remember it correctly. Yeah, giving it to the former president. And the reason, I mean, I don't really have any scientific reason for this. It's just a gut vibe that I think former President Trump would still get Wisconsin in my view. Like, do you think that can be true or
Oh,
no?
sure. Yeah, it's I kind of what's been funny is, I'm not disagreeing with you per se, is if you look at, usually these states from election to election, they'll kind of stay in the same order. For instance, Pennsylvania was a little more Republican than Wisconsin in both 2016 and 2020. Now, if you look at polls, Pennsylvania looks, Wisconsin looks better for Biden than, say, Pennsylvania does, and sometimes even better than Michigan does as well. But if it's a if it's a close national race, if both candidates are tied in the national popular vote, yeah, you would very much expect a state like Wisconsin to go either way. So I think it is a defensible call. One of the things that I'm seeing, or one of the theories I've heard floated on Twitter is a lot of polls just aren't capturing. You hear about Joe Biden's weakness with blacks and Hispanics, and basically you have a lot of blacks and Hispanics in polls that are not voting for Biden. They're kind of voting undecided, right? They'll probably come home to Biden in the end, but for now, so basically, point being, I think that's why his numbers are kind of especially weak in a state like Georgia, which has a big black vote. But in Wisconsin, which is the whitest of those swing states, Biden, if you look at polls now, he does the best in Wisconsin. So we'll be interested to see if that holds. I can tell you what really helps Democrats in Wisconsin is Dane County, which is Madison. It's been growing and growing if you look at the population there, but I would say, yeah, basically, this to me looks like, this looks like a very reasonable prediction, I would say.
Oh, thanks.
Yeah. So just to end, though, I mean, since we can still talk more about state by state analysis and Senate races in the future, what would be the best issue that Trump and Biden should avoid in order to win in November?
Avoid, okay. I would say, for Joe Biden, it's immigration. It's an issue that the Republicans have been pounding him on for a solid 2 years now.
Yep.
And he did this kind of order earlier this year about amnesty. That way he can say, okay, look, I did something on immigration.
Yep.
What are the other issues, right? So he can kind of shut the
They blocked
Republicans
it.
up, right? And for Trump, I'd say, basically abortion. That's if the Democrats end up overperforming this year, it's probably going to be because of the abortion issue. You have a lot of voters who are still, to put it lightly, very upset over that. So that to me is something I would say. And
So that would matter to them more, the abortion issue,
what's
than
that?
I mean, what would matter more to the anti-Trump voters would be the abortion issue, right?
Yeah,
Is
I would
what you
say it would
think,
be
rather than his personal legal troubles.
yeah, it's I would say look, this is what I've been saying about his legal go troubles is I can see it helping Biden, but maybe not as much as you would think. I say that because if you voted against Trump in 2016 and 2020, it would probably not surprise you much that he's very ethically bad, right?
Hmm.
Whereas if you voted for him in either of those years, I used, my grandma is a perfect example where she lives back home in Louisiana. I love her, but she watches Fox News all day,
Hmm.
and which is kind of useful because it gives me kind of a window into how a Trump supporter thinks. Oh,
Hmm.
she just thinks all of these charges against him are a bunch of bull. So that's why I don't think you're going to see a lot of movement because on that issue. I think it's the Biden spokesman after the conviction said something like, "Okay, well, if we're going to beat Trump, we're not going to beat him in the courtroom. It's going to have to
That is
be
correct.
the ballot
Yeah, that's true.
box," which I think is true. And
That is correct.
Yeah, we agree.
maybe if he's actually put in jail, maybe. But kind of another point on that is, the whole conviction thing. It might not change many people's minds, but if Biden wants to win the election, it's going to be close. He may not have to change a lot of people's minds. And I think for a lot of those swing voters who don't approve of Biden, but aren't too hot on Trump either, this is another thing that they're going to have to consider, right? Is do we want to, we don't like Biden, but do we want to vote for someone who's convicted, who's a convicted felon, right? So it just puts up another bridge, or like another barrier towards voting for Trump.
Okay, so I think that would summarize we already hit the hour mark, Miles. So
Okay.
we just need to make that as the final part of our recording. So thank you so much for joining us tonight, or well, in your
And I
case,
hope we can
this
have
that
this
morning.
conversation
Yeah,
again
Oh, sure,
in
yeah.
some.
If yeah, I mean, I'm sure I'm happy to come back on. Maybe when I get back next time, I can show off some of my Tagawa. No, I'm
yeah,
kidding. I'm kidding.
yeah. I
I'll
mean,
get there
next
eventually. My
next
Tagalog
time.
will get better. I'll get there
Ne-
eventually.
yeah, next time you can ask about something in order to equivocate. You can ask something about Philippine politics and what we know about it, since we
Okay,
both
yeah.
Yes.
we both know it
I can
from.
say the qualitative part, and then my friend Circuit can say the
Yeah,
quantitative part of it.
Okay.
yeah, because Philippine politics is very much like American politics. It's crazy.
Uh,
It's very surprising. I
Uh-huh.
mean, Marcos just won the presidency. I mean, people, took him out. I mean, their family was taken out, and now they're back. So that's just one weirdness in our politics. So yeah, thank you, Miles. I mean, it's a pleasure to
Thank
know
you,
you.
Sir Miles, again
All
for
right,
the
sure.
time.
Sure. All right. Well, sounds good. We will be in touch. Nice to talk with y'all.
Yeah, we
Yeah.
as well. Thank you so much for
All
that.
right.
Yeah,
Thank you.
hope to see you next time. Okay, so
Uh,
we're going to end this